In Japan, there is a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Or in Japanese, 出る杭は打たれる. Go to high school, don't dye your hair, wear your uniform properly, get a job, etc. But is it still true today? We asked young Japanese people and foreigners living here one question. Is conformity still the rule, or is a new generation starting to stand out? So what do you think about this saying, 出る杭は打たれる?
I think Japan kind of has this culture where you're coerced into conforming to certain standards and ideals, and I think that limits free expression and also the ability for people to truly be who they want. And I think that has both positive and negative effects. I think one good thing about that is that it's allowed Japan's culture to remain really strong and one of the strongest in the world, in my opinion. But I think another thing is obviously that it limits one's ability to actually be able to express who they are.
I mean, I think there's some powerful good to some of the ways in which Japan has been so successful because of certain ideas around conformity and unity. And I think that has certainly helped. I think in other ways it hinders, right? I think as a foreigner, one of my hopes is to learn as much as possible about how I can be, how I can best be unified and integrated into Japanese society. And at the same time, not so under the pressure of conformity that we lose individuality.
I think there's a difference between, forms of assimilation and outright conformity. I think there is, there's something to be said where if you're going to stay in a country, live in a country, that you should try to adopt some of the culture, learn the language, try to assimilate some parts of you without necessarily letting go of all of you.
I think that saying is very prominent in Japan. For example, when you're on a train and say someone falls down, nobody really cares because they don't want to stand out. I feel like that culture kind of has an extremely negative effect on Japan, and no one's really willing to take risks because they are afraid to stand out.
And I think Jungi mentioned this earlier, but about xenophobia. I mean, I don't know how else to say that, but that was pretty blunt. But Japan is a xenophobic country in general, so they're not very inviting to foreigners. I think I, as a half Japanese person with a Japanese mom, has experienced this personally where I don't really fit in to either group, so I find that kind of odd. But yeah, I think it has both positive things and drawbacks.
That's one of the criticisms I think in the world of Japanese business is that unity and conformity have overpowered the ability to be innovative, which is why Japan's one of the markets that actually struggles to have a truly strong startup market. I think it's both a strength and a weakness. And as a foreigner, I hope to learn from its strengths and support the ways in which we can change the weaknesses into strengths again.
Like I said before, I think the United States is a good example of that. We have so many different Americans that are hyphenated with other things, right? There's Asian Americans, Latino Americans, and nobody has to give up their culture that makes them individuals of where their people came from. But at the same time, there's now new elements of what makes you American. So I would say the same thing for Japan. There's going to be elements of you should adopt these things like language, music, some social identifiers, but that doesn't mean that you have to let go of other things. And I think Japan should celebrate that, right? So you got Hachimura, you got trying to think of some others, Naomi Osaka, I think, tennis player. You got the Miss Japan a few years ago, right? You got all these people that didn't let go of their Japanese identity regardless of their mixed identity, right? But they don't give up that mixed identity either. And I think that's kind of the way forward for Japan, is looking at all the different additions that people bring into the country instead of thinking about what you might lose in the process.
Okay.